Welcome to another episode of the Chill by Nette podcast. This podcast is created for those who are passionate about their personal development, health, and well-being. This is a platform for you to come chill by my personal stories and weekly tips in becoming a better version of ourselves and to live a better present. But first, let's chill. My name is Jeanette. Welcome back. In today's episode, we will dive a little deeper into the concept of mindfulness. So in the last episode, we have established that mindfulness, in essence, is a state of being where we purposefully connect ourselves to the present moment. There are in fact many ways to bring ourselves to this state of mindfulness. The time we stay in this state of awareness varies as well, but mindfulness is basically just a moment where we are able to refocus our mind and to connect or to be fully aware of our present experiences, which includes our thoughts, our emotions, without any judgment. And that means without labeling it as good or bad. I know it sounds easier said than done. So then the next question is really, how can we then cultivate this state of mindfulness that I've been talking about, right? Well, one very common and fundamental way is to connect with our breath. But note that it doesn't really have to be our breath, but our breath is always there for us to connect to. So the idea here is we just kind of need something to focus our attention on that helps us to bring our mind to a single focus. Now, these may all sound quite abstract as of now, right? So I think to illustrate this way of connecting with the present moment, with our breath, I think the more effective way is to bring you through the how exactly. So this is a practice that can be done in a minute or less, and it can be repeated throughout your entire day. You can see it like a mini toolkit to use whenever you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed. Alright, so if you would like to, feel free to try it with me. So to start off, whenever you are standing or sitting, allow yourself to consciously tune into the fact that you're breathing and the fact that you are alive. Sometimes it's about the remembering of just tuning into our breath. That is the hard part, right? Especially when our schedules are just quite packed most of the time. Now, we're not going to be covering breathing methods in this episode, but for now, just taking a deep breath and allow yourself to connect to at least one intentional conscious breath. Breathe in and breathe out at your own pace, at a natural rhythm. You do not have to change your pace of breathing. Just breathe at a natural pace that is comfortable to you. And from that mindful connection with your breath, you can then expand that awareness to your entire body. Take a moment to feel which parts of your body has tension. Try to observe it without judgment and see if you can release any of those tensions. Breathe in into those tensions. And if you find that your mind is currently having some negative thoughts which are distracting you at this instance, try to bring your focus back to your breath. It's okay to wander off and have negative thoughts, but try to bring the awareness and focus back to your breath. You can also feel the connection and sensation of the floor or the chair that you're sitting on. Keep breathing at your own pace. So this entire process can take 1 minute or even less. Then, make a conscious effort to carry this awareness that you have cultivated to the very next moment of your life, no matter what is the activity. You can be making your breakfast, you can be attending a meeting, or even just by replying an email, or you might be in the midst of a phone call or some project, right? Whatever it is, carry this sense of wakefulness and groundedness to your next moment. Alright? So when we are doing this, the moment we try to connect with the present moment in the midst of whatever we are doing, that is what we call a mindful moment. So yes, that is a very fundamental practice I've learned on how we can actually shift from our default autopilot mode, which is the mode of doing, to a more mindful state. which is the state of being. And it can be done during any time of the day, when we feel like we are stressed out or overwhelmed, or when we just simply feel like we need to reconnect with ourselves in the midst of our busy schedules. So, knowing this means that basically everyone can practice mindfulness if they want to. Anybody can sit down and watch their breath or watch their mind, right? So when people say that they can't practice it, what they mean is they just can't see themselves sticking to the routine or the repetition, because it does require some discipline and effort, to stay at it for a few minutes. Or sometimes people might just not like the experience, right? When they do it, they may experience unpleasant emotions that they have not felt before, which are just quite counterintuitive from what they have expected, because most people have the idea that mindfulness practice should ideally make us feel more relaxed, right? So it may make us feel more relaxed, but then again, the goal is about watching our emotions, be it whatever emotions we have, it's about observing our emotions. And sometimes, these unpleasant emotions that we are feeling can get magnified, right? So it's about feeling these emotions within ourselves. And if the emotion is something that is very troubling or really, has been suppressing in you for, quite some time, then, practicing mindfulness might make you feel a bit more uncomfortable. It's natural, because now that you're more aware and you're more aware that this emotion is sitting within you and you're trying to now, feel the difficult emotion. So then people can just not want to do it if they don't like what they are feeling, right? So the point is, mindfulness practice really isn't to make us feel more relaxed, right? It's really more about cultivating the awareness. We might feel more tensions and more feelings as a result of this awareness that we have cultivated when we engage in this practice of mindfulness. But a key here is also to observe these feelings, be it pleasant or unpleasant, and notice how it feels like when it is in your body. Which part of your body is it located at? And do this without judgment and without criticism. So as a result, when we practice, we might not necessarily feel good or relaxed, but that's all right? The key here is really to cultivate more awareness and to bring yourself back to the present moment by focusing on a single point, which is in this case our breath, right? So what I've just introduced is a way to cultivate this awareness using our breath. And our breath is just one way to cultivate this awareness. There are many, many other ways to do so. But why I found this breath technique really useful is because, I just find that it is something that is always available to us, right? Other things may not be available so readily, but our breath is something that we are constantly engaging in. So I just found that, this idea about focusing on our breath is something that is so accessible to us, but yet so many of us just don't consciously try to do it. And, since it's so readily available, maybe, it's all about making the point to remember to connect with our breath, right? So there's no right way to develop mindfulness. There are so many ways. And what I am sharing is what I have been practicing that has worked for me. So I'm not someone who can actually sit down and meditate for a few hours, at least not at this moment. But I find that these small moments of mindfulness that I inject into the parts of my day helps me to stay more present and more grounded. So I find that, the biggest benefit for me is that this practice of mindfulness does shift me away from a lot of my intrusive thoughts. Or rather, it does not shift me away from my intrusive thoughts. It kind of distracts me such that I can move out of the intrusive thoughts and, observe it from far. But at the same time, how I observe it from far is to connect with my breath. So in series 1, we did talk about how, when you're having intrusive thoughts, take a step back and try to observe these thoughts from a third party's perspective, right? Instead of being caught in that spiral. But I did not mention how to do it, right? So in a way, what I found worked for me is, connecting with your breath helps you to kind of move away from these intrusive thoughts. And, moving away is not like escaping from it. It's more of like stepping aside to observe these thoughts from a third party perspective, like what I mentioned in series 1. So that is one of the benefits I found that was really important for me, because anxiety is something that I've been struggling with, and with anxiety comes all these intrusive thoughts and all these worries, right? So by connecting with my breath, I'm able to distract myself from all these thoughts. For some people, they may benefit from this mindfulness practice because they use it as a tool for self-exploration, right? Others could use it as a way to react to stressful situations. Or it could also be a way for us to see the world from a new perspective, right? When we are in the being mode. So we talked about how mindfulness can bring us into the mode of being, right? And in the mode of being, we might just generate more insights, a different perspective in the world we live in. So there are many purposes in the practice of mindfulness. Again, there's no one right purpose, but, it all builds on the fact that mindfulness can help us to refocus our mind, bring it to the present moment, and to connect with the present moment, which can then help us achieve all the potential benefits that I've listed. Now, if you're new to all this, the key here is to really bring awareness to this concept and try to see what it does for you. So after all, the beauty about mindfulness practice is I can only share this concept with you, but how the experience feels for you is definitely different from how it feels for me, right? Because what you may find might not be what I find, and what works for me may not be what works for you, because we are all trying to achieve different things in this present moment of our lives, right? So for me, I think it's a long but rewarding journey of self-exploration, and as I mentioned, it helps me to manage my anxiety and intrusive thoughts. But one thing I'm certain is that with the practice of mindfulness, our mindfulness muscle, basically this muscle that we engage in, right, to practice mindfulness, will be strengthened over time. Okay, this means that our ability to be mindful increases more as we practice mindfulness. It's a beautiful thing, and I really, really rely on this technique a lot recently, and I really found that it helps me sleep better when I feel like I'm not able to sleep at night, right? I would kind of sometimes also engage in this practice of mindfulness by connecting with my breath for a few minutes. And this will help bring me out of the negative spiral that, I often have inside my head. They are automatic thoughts that, it's hard for me to not think about, because our human minds are just programmed in a way that there's constantly something for us to think about, right? If it's not this, then it's that. And sometimes our thoughts can just kind of jump from one to another. And by connecting ourselves with the present moment is the secret to break out of these thought cycle, at least for me. All right, so I hope that this episode had gave you a little more insights to what constitutes as mindfulness practice, and know that mindfulness doesn't have to be a 2-hour-long meditation, nor does it have to only happen when we get to have a proper quiet place to sit down, right? We can do mindfulness practice when we are standing up, making our breakfast, making a phone call, at any point of the day. We can make a conscious effort to practice, to engage in mindfulness, so that we create the